everyone. Welcome to the Energy Realities Podcast. Today is February 17th, 2025. It is the 4-week anniversary of the inauguration of President Donald Trump, and the world is still reeling from the level of activity here in the United States. Before we came on, Irina Slav, who is in Bulgaria. Hello, how are you, Irina?
I'm good, if a little bit cold because winter is back.
Yes, it's back everywhere, I'm afraid. Stu Turley in Oklahoma.
Hey, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yes, before we came on, we were talking about J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference last Friday. That has really gotten quite the reaction in Europe and the United States, and it's a wild and woolly world we're in right now. But we're here to talk about coal today. It's very interesting what's happening on the coal front. Even before President Trump took office, coal refused to cooperate with the narrative of this energy transition and just go away quietly, as China and India have made certain that it continues to be burned at record pace across the globe, all-time records, despite the spending of trillions of dollars in subsidies for wind and solar and some other, quote, green energy forms like hydrogen, which of course we all know is a pipe dream, and carbon capture and all these other things. Coal continues to be the king of power generation all across the earth. And one notable thing in the United States last week was the fact that our Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, the most qualified person to ever hold that job, said the United States is going to stop closing coal-fired power plants in the Trump administration. That sets the stage for a renaissance of coal here, even in the United States. And we're here to talk about it. Irina, what is your perspective on what's happening on the coal front?
Well, let me start with a personal story. I told you guys before we went live that the weather forecast has minus 14 degrees centigrade for the weekend, which is really, really cold. But you know what we have? We have coal. We have the 3 biggest coal-powered plants in the country. I can see them from my window. And
Nice.
They are working, at, I believe, full capacity, because that's the only kind of reliable electricity we can get in addition to our nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
I understand there are problems with coal. If you don't control the operators, they can get careless and, spew dirt in the atmosphere. And when I say dirt, I mean particulate matter. I don't mean carbon dioxide. So control is obviously necessary, but coal gives you reliable and cheap electricity. It stops being cheap when you start taxing these coal power plants for their carbon emissions, which is what the European Union does, and it has made coal more expensive relative to other sources of energy. And it has been one of the biggest mistakes that the European Union has made, and maybe they will realize it, maybe they won't. But even Germany is, cranking up the coal power plants because there's no wind. And by the way, did you see the new study that says it's climate change that's responsible for the low wind speeds in Europe? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's never happened before, right?
It has never happened before. It doesn't happen in winter generally because when it's so cold, the wind doesn't blow so strongly. But yeah, it's climate change. And I'm sure the solution, I didn't read the whole study, but I'm sure the solution is build more wind turbines. Keep digging yourself into a hole while you keep your coal power plants. And I think I've said this before on some episodes. What China and India are doing is what everybody should be doing, because I think Tammy noted this. There's coal pretty much everywhere. It's really accessible, unlike oil and gas in many parts of the world. But there's coal pretty much everywhere. And there's a lot of coal in India and China, which is why they're building new coal power plants. And we should all be doing this, or not closing the ones we have.
Oh, I think that's right. And Stu has a wonderful illustration of what's happening. Germany has done pretty much everything wrong in power generation over the past 20 years. But one thing they haven't done wrong is shut down all their coal-fired power plants like the UK has done. And Stu, that World Energy Monitor has a great map that illustrates what's happening, number one, with operational coal plants all over the face of the earth. But let us take a look, Stu, at what's happening in Germany.
All right. But when we take a look at this, I have to give them a shout out. This is the Global Energy Monitor, and it was in an article from Tanzania's, I can't, she's from Oil Price, and I cannot pronounce her name. I apologize. Irina, how would you pronounce her name here? It's Tess.
Yeah. She's my best friend, so her name is Tsvetana Paraskova.
Oh, bless you. Okay, thank you. I cannot say it, and I apologize, but she has a great article.
Yeah.
And I added the map into this after pirating it, and it's on my site. But now, when we come over here, did I say that I pirated it? Yes, but I gave her credit. These are the coal plants around the world that are announced. Notice where they're taking a look. We're in Mozambique, we're in India, and look at the size of these rascals. This one, these are some huge ones as we're taking a look. Let's go into the permitted ones. I don't know that there's a permitting issue in India or China going on right now. I don't know that that's a problem. And I think Lee Zeldin, Lee Zeldin in the United States is going to do that. You notice the United States is still like, no permits. Let's go under construction. Okay. Drum roll. Look at this.
Gosh.
This is under construction at this moment. There's 437 of them with 4,000 megawatts. That is a lot of power. Yeah. Look at this one right here. So now let's take a look at what's operating right now. You have 6,120 megawatts around the world. And when you take a look
at the cluster up in Germany.
Oh, let's drill into Germany here.
Look at Germany.
Wow.
And Poland, with all of those coal-fired power plants.
And here's Bulgaria down over here. So these have got to be. Which one?
I'm right there near these, the Maritza.
Oh, how fun.
Well, you're secure. You're going to have power going during this cold snap.
Yeah.
But look at Germany.
I think operating. They just didn't dare close them. There was at least one person with some sense in their head who said we shouldn't shut them down yet,
like they did with their nuclear plants.
And look at all their nuclear. And look at Europe. When you take a look at, I added back in announced pre-permit announced and operating. And one of the biggest things that there's another article that came out, guys, and that is that Texas ERCOT. I've been reviewing the grid in the United States. And the grid in the United States is not going to meet demand. I'm working on that article, and it is going to not meet it. ERCOT put out a report that we are going to see a little bit of a problem in 2026.
Next year, yeah.
And in 2027. And so a little bit of a problem is okay. That's better than 90% of the rest of the United States. So Texas is at least doing better there. Let me go up here to this comment.
But still, that is why I believe we're going to be reactivating mothballed coal plants in Texas and eventually permitting new coal plants in Texas. Because we have to have the base load to keep up with our exploding economic and population growth.
Let's go to shelved, mothball, and canceled.
This is really stupid on the part of Romania's government. They should have renegotiated.
Yeah. That's why you
But
should
maybe
not be in the
there
EU.
aren't enough workers at coal power plants to protest, because this is what we did. I mean, it's still uncertain. I think they can still force us to do the same. But there are a lot of people employed in that industry. It will
So,
be
David,
difficult.
absolutely, and that's an excellent point from Emil. And take a look at the canceled, shelved, or mothballed, and how much of those have been shut down. There's 170 mothballed. Now, I don't know. I have to go look up the definition of mothballed and can they be turned back on. And in Germany, Bulgaria has several that are mothballed. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
This is 100 megawatts.
That's
Germany,
more big.
yeah.
Oh, put that
So it
next
started
comment
in-
by Neil up there. I can't do it. Supposedly renegotiating right now, also fighting off ONGs, which is what we call NGOs in the United States, trying to shut down hydro. Which is what Spain has done. That's created so many floods in Spain.
Oh my
It's blowing
God.
up dams and blowing
Romania
up.
has a lot of hydropower. If they want to start, restoring rivers, they'll
Insane.
be putting a lot of people in danger, and not just from unreliable energy supplies. Well, I hope you vote sensibly, Emil, at the next elections. I don't know what to say. We can hope.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, but even if they do, you have to hope that the deep state doesn't come in and cancel the election if it goes the wrong way.
If
like
they
they're about
cancel
to
the
probably
election
do
for
in
the
Germany.
second time, this will be really dangerous, I think.
Yeah.
Really, really dangerous.
So what is that? What are we showing here, Stu? This is
these are retired, and I found this one very interesting. When you take a look at 1953, retired year was 2009. How much of the equipment has been removed versus how much is it going to cost to bring back online? If the connections or grid connections are there, it should be fairly easy. It depends on how much equipment they removed.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yep.
But this is a very telling sign of how much has been done. Let's go back into Germany for a second.
Oh, look at the UK. Look at this.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And that's all happened in this century.
Retired 2013. And their energy prices have, the UK, and we've all talked about this, about
UK's the highest in the world.
And their energy deindustrialization is ongoing right now.
Yeah. It's just
So
crazy. And that's part of what Chris Wright was saying. We're not going to continue this deindustrialization effort the Biden administration had embarked us upon, and we're going to keep our coal plants open. And I suspect we'll be reinvigorating some of these mothball plants too.
One of the key things that I think all three of us understand, but I don't know that all of our listeners really kind of have gotten it, is let's take a look again at this. Okay, that's operating and under construction right now. The United States has reduced its CO2 output by 22% over the last 5 years, I believe. And it was because of natural gas coming online and coal plants shutting down. There is nothing that we can do to stop or help this. When you take a look at how much CO2, the Great Wall of China rolls right around into somewhere around in here, viewable from space. It does not contain CO2 or particulate matter from coal plants. As much as we would like to believe it, there's nothing the United States can do to solve the problem.
Oh,
No.
Can't you just bomb them? mean, your governments like this solution to problems, but I guess there will be issues with emissions should this happen. I am joking.
Yes, this is for entertainment purposes only, but
Yeah,
DOGE,
yeah, definitely.
For DOGE, discovering that USAID has been a corruption source for the three-letter agencies disrupting governments around the world and more things. Can you imagine how much corruption that people are looking at right now? I've got a video of some U.S. politicians looking at the DOGE corruption report right now, Irina. This is critical. And when you sit back and take a look, they are looking at this report. It is frightening to understand that they're going, wait a minute. They're more upset that Elon is looking at these reports, but here they are looking at these reports.
Yep.
So they're not worried that we're funding trans something or other parties in Afghanistan. That's not the issue. The issue is that billions of dollars have been stolen from the billions of dollars and trillions of dollars have been stolen from the American people. And I believe that we are about to find out how bad that is as it's related to energy as well. DOGE is now supposed to be auditing Fort Knox that hasn't been audited since 1994. Oops. And there is a global shortage of gold going on right now.
Yeah.
Oops.
Not in China, not in Russia. They have been buying gold very smartly over the past, well, at least 5 years.
Yeah. And we're supposed to have 6,532 tons of gold at Fort Knox. And we'll see how much we actually have. Maybe we do. I hope so. If not, that could create some fallout in the markets.
I believe we don't. We're going to find out.
Common belief, yeah, but I don't have any insight into that.
I don't either.
Does that include foreign reserves, as in countries storing their gold at Fort Knox?
How much physical gold we're supposed to have at Fort Knox?
That's right.
I think it's 6,542. I might be getting the number slightly wrong, but it's thousands of tons of coal that's supposed to be there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not all U.S. property.
Right.
It includes foreign store. Yeah, okay.
No. That's just the physical gold that's supposed to be at Fort Knox.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, there's also, what you're talking about too. San Miguel coal plant in Texas to get a $1.4 billion. I don't know if it's a loan or a grant from USDA for solar and battery to replace a coal plant. What a waste of our rural dollars. Yes, absolutely. It's a waste.
They had the same idea about our coal plants. Exactly the same idea. Let's turn them into a solar power hub and green hydrogen. Let's close the mines, build the solar panels, put in the batteries, and also put in some hydrolysis to produce green hydrogen. I mean, it's a horrifying idea. I hope this never happens to the San Miguel coal plant.
Yeah, all those IRA incentives are under review right now. That may not happen. I mean, we'll see.
Good.
And that's DOGE activity too.
Well, Irina, the hockey is is hockey a big thing in Bulgaria?
Well, not really, but I am a fan. I like it because it's brutal and straightforward.
Yeah, the Canadians had a real fun booing of the United States, but I did find that after Trudeau went out and celebrated the loss by buying a new sports car. So this was pretty cool.
Isn't he?
Yes, he did. Watch out.
Man, that really does look like
it does look like him. I had to show everybody that. Let's watch that again. Watch this. Okay. Sorry about that.
It suits him.
I want one of those, by the way. I use wheelbarrows a lot, man. I want one of those.
Oh, I do too. I got my backhoe. I got my other equipment around the place. So, you know, I got to have me one of them. That's pretty darn cool.
So a couple of little items of trivia that came out this week in a couple of reports or new studies. One study found that China permitted more new coal plants in 2024 than in any year since 2015. Now, that's directly contrary to the narrative that is being spun by the UN and the WEF that China's fully cooperating with the energy transition and, oh, they're leading the world in renewable energy and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. They're building more coal than they built in a decade. Why are they doing that? Because countries like the UK and Germany are deindustrializing their economies. So all their heavy industries are moving offshore, and many of them are moving to China, where if you're going to make steel, you have to have coal. Yeah, you can do it with natural gas, but it's more expensive. So they're building coal plants to take in all these new heavy industries that the Western world is shipping over to them. What does that mean? It means that as China and the UK are deindustrializing their economies and bragging about their, virtue signaling about green energy and energy transition, their net reduction in global emissions is zero. Zero. They're not doing anything. They're not accomplishing a damn thing. And, India is doing the same thing. India is also building a lot of nuclear, but they just continue to build more and more coal plants because they have to have them.
And I want to bring this up. You mentioned that absolutely wonderful point, and that is, as the UK and Germany and the EU deindustrialize, India is industrializing and becoming one of the largest LNG importers in the world right now. And when you take a look at President Trump trying to do reverse tariffs, if you tariff something against the United States, he's going to tariff your country the same rate. I love this. And I think it's fantastic from the standpoint that the UK, the EU tariffs the United States unbelievably. And when you sit back and take a look at how much, there's a 200% Canadian tariff on U.S. farm goods. I'm all in. Let's just do equal tariffs. You tariff us, we tariff you. Have a great day. I like the way he's thinking. But now LNG, David, becomes Trump's big thing because Europeans don't want to buy Fords. And so what is the EU talking about right now? The EU is not at the table for the Russia Ukraine talks to be held in Saudi Arabia. So what is on the table right now for LNG? LNG, you're going to have President Trump, you're going to have Saudi Arabia, and you're going to have Russia, three of the biggest oil producers in the world, at a negotiation coming up next week for a wonderful end of the Ukraine war. And don't tell me that LNG is not going to come up at this discussion.
Well, sure.
I think it's going to be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first they'll close the deal between themselves, and then they'll invite the Europeans and maybe talk about LNG. And this could happen after the German election. So that will be interesting.
That will be interesting. Although I think that German election is going to come out pretty status quo at the end of the day after all the fight rhetoric around it.
We'll see, but yeah.
So LNG is going to be Trump's hip pocket for tariffs and energy exports for the United States in balancing trade wars. That is the best thing that the United States has going for it right now. So now getting a long-term contract is also tough, David. You and I have both talked about the Jones Act. We can't build our own ships fast enough. We don't have enough shipbuilding. And if I was a business,
too. Yeah.
If I would want to be able to control the entire supply line. We don't own ships.
No, and we can't because, I mean, all of our shipbuilding capability in the United States is tied up by the U.S. Navy. And it's, even they're going to need much more capability in the coming years. And so, you know, we have dramatically devastated our shipbuilding industry in the United States. And, you know, so most commercial ships, and all commercial ships, basically are built offshore. And that's going to have to change too at some point. Hopefully, all the changes Trump is making will encourage new shipbuilding capacity to come online here in the United States.
And boy, if President Trump, if you're listening to this, please get rid of the Jones Act. Just thought I'd point that out.
You know, that's I doubt. I mean, and I agree with you in principle, but I doubt they're going to invest a lot of political capital in that because it's such a. I mean, it's like one of the fourth rails of American politics. It's just so tied up in labor politics, union politics, and it just. My God, the first time I worked on an effort to modify the Jones Act was in 2001. I mean, people have been trying to modify or repeal the Jones Act for over 100 years. You know, I mean, it's never ending. It's a terrible law. It's stupid and totally counterproductive, but it has an awful lot of very powerful political interests lined up behind it to keep it in place. And, you know,
maybe
just any administration that goes off into that is diverting a lot of political capital from other things.
Well, maybe a fallout. We'll see how the fallout goes around the world, because the world, I loved Vice President Vance telling the EU some interesting things that they did not like that he was actually saying. By the way, you all are stifling free speech. And I loved what he had to say. As a vice president, he was very well received, and they did not like what he had to say. So I think America is doing a lot better now.
They're not used to hearing the truth, which is a big part of the problem.
And Irina, does Bulgaria have any guarantees of free speech similar to the First Amendment in the United States?
Well, I think it's in the Constitution, but whether it's respected or not is an entirely different matter. But at least we're not throwing people in jail for hate speech.
Right. I mean, in Scotland and the UK, they're throwing people in prison for repeating.
And besides, it will be more difficult in Eastern Europe because you know, we have this totalitarian past, and people are more touchy about this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, so I guess our bottom line here on coal is, I mean, it's the same thing, same story every year. We're using record amount of coal. We haven't reached peak coal yet, so don't anybody talk to me about peak oil.
Yeah.
There is no energy transmission. I mean, right, there transition. The energy transition is a myth that isn't happening. We have an energy addition and energy innovation out the wazoo, but there is no transition taking place. And everybody really ought to just stop talking about it in those terms, in my opinion. What do you think, Irina?
I hope they will, but I doubt they will until they absolutely have to, which is when they will start pretending they never pushed for this transition in the first place. I keep on saying this. It is my firm belief that this is what we're going to see over the next few years. I think the bureaucrats, especially in Europe, they will fight to their last political breath to keep the narrative going in the face of all the evidence that it is not going as they hoped, as they dreamed. It could never go this way because it's impossible. And they will keep burning coal. They will keep importing Russian gas, even if they slap more sanctions. I mean,
so what does it say about the laws of physics and thermodynamics, right? I mean, we talk about
they
that.
are laws.
Yeah,
you can't do anything about them. They're laws.
Stu, what do you think?
About the energy transition?
Yeah, and about the law of physics and thermodynamics.
A great man once said physics and fiscal responsibility matter to the grid. And I believe his name's David Blackman. Did I call you a great man? I apologize. Sorry about that. I did not mean to be nice. But when we sit back and take a look at the amount of corruption that is being discovered, the amount of Green New Deal energy policies coupled with corruption, regimes change when they don't have low cost energy. And we're seeing that play out in Germany. We are about to see the amount of global corruption coming out. And I don't think anybody is prepared to understand how corrupt the government mechanism around the world is. Not only the United States government was corrupt.
States, that's right.
It is the Green New Deal is not an energy transition. There is going to be no energy transition with the current technology, in my opinion. I think that Tesla, the inventor Tesla, had it right. There is free energy machines that are popping up around the world, but anybody that invents a free energy machine is killed. I mean, it's just one of those kind of things. So it as those things come around,
but okay,
that's a whole different topic.
You talk about the laws of physics. A free energy machine stands in complete defiance of the laws of physics, right?
Many have tried it, none have succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the perpetual motion machine, right?
Yeah,
it just
in a small scale they have been.
It can't work.
They have built several small ones, and they've got one that's now in testing mode. And I'm watching these things because I'm trying to see how all this is going around the world. Building a microgrid, we are seeing microgrids come in to support natural gas is the only way the United States for the next 5 years is going to meet its demand is with natural gas, period. I mean, it's all the new plants coming in.
Substitute coal, yes.
Yes. And so what we are seeing, though, is perpetual based machines built on a small scale do work. They are very independent, but can they scale? Not yet. I don't think so. That will be a time when the energy transition happens, when those kind of things can happen. Till then, it ain't happening, in my opinion.
Well, it's all kind of like nuclear fusion, isn't it? Cold fusion.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been hearing about cold fusions just around the corner since the 1970s. It's a long, very wide corner, folks. I mean, and you may never get around it. We all have to be aware that you just might not ever get around that corner. And you have to make sensible investments and do the right things to maintain reliability in your energy space on the possibility that you never get around that corner. And that means we have to take advantage of all of our resources, mineral resources and otherwise, to ensure this world remains powered properly. And we've lost sight of that the last 4 years. And at least in the executive branch of the United States government, we are refocusing on the right things, which is a good thing.
You bet.
Yeah,
and we are seeing DOGE doing a lot of cutting. I'm not sure if I showed this one already, but this is pretty cool when you take a look at DOGE doing cutting again. Look at that. They're being precise. They're going to do some serious cutting here. Watch this. This is DOGE cutting. Oh. Sorry about that.
All right. We have ended our coal discussion 5 minutes over time. So now it's time to go to our weekly feature, our favorite news articles of the week. Who's first?
And we got to give a shout out to Tammy. She's out running around, but follow her Substack, the Energy Report, Nemeth Report Substack.
I
Let's
owe
go.
Tammy a big apology for not mentioning the fact that she wasn't here. What a stupid host I am. We miss you, Tammy. Anyway,
You look nice though, David.
I do look great, don't I? Man, that's my favorite shirt and my new no logo cap, so I don't piss people off with my Longhorn cap or my Dodgers cap. Anyway,
Since when
so
do
here
you
am
care?
I. We've got Reuters got paid millions of dollars by the Department of Defense for large-scale social deception. This is one of the revelations here over the past week by DOGE. They went into the Department of Defense budget and found out it was paying Reuters $170,000 every month for the last 9 years to engage in a campaign of large-scale social deception. They don't even mince words about it in the line item in the budget. That's what Reuters has been getting paid for. And a lot of that large scale social deception has been related to climate alarmism and energy. And they're not the only one. We're going to find out that pretty much every major news organization in our country has been paid, not just by the government, but by Soros funded and other billionaire funded foundations and NGOs to create climate propaganda over the past decade or two. The Washington Post is a great example. They employ more than 50 reporters who write about climate at one
50
newspaper.
just for the climate.
Yes, just for climate. Now, do you think the Washington Post editorial staff decided to fund that out of its subscriber-based budget? Please. That money's coming in from left-wing interests funded by billionaires like Soros and the Rockefellers and the Parks and the Hineses and all the rest of them. So this is a tip of the iceberg scandal that is going to be, I think the mainstream media is already dying. This is going to accelerate that process. The other one is Diamondback Energy, one of the biggest independent producer now in the Permian Basin since ExxonMobil bought Pioneer Natural Resources, is in talks to buy Double Eagle, another big independent producer, for $5 billion. This is just going to give Diamondback an even bigger position of contiguous acreage in the Permian Basin. It's going to allow it to become much more profitable and produce and drill more wells at lower cost. And, it's just another big deal. It hasn't happened yet, but it's probably going to happen here in the coming days. So, and Stu, there was that other one. What was it? Did you see my email about India? Is
Yes.
One company in India is NTPC going to spend $62 billion on 30 gigawatts of new nuclear power plants in India over the coming decade.
Isn't that great?
That's a big deal. And that's where I think we're going to see a lot of announcements like this here over the next few years. And this one I just wrote this morning. Trump, on his first day, he signed an executive order, but they held a media availability a week ago that most in the media didn't even write about, ordering Zeldin to produce by February 19th, which is this Wednesday, a reevaluation of EPA's endangerment finding related to carbon dioxide and methane.
Wow.
As to regulate them as pollutants under the Clean Air Act. Now, carbon dioxide is plant food. Clearly, it's not a pollutant, and no sane person or honest person would ever even attempt to classify carbon dioxide as a pollutant. It's the basis for all life on planet Earth. How can it be a pollutant? Yeah. And the thing about this is that endangerment finding in the 2007 case, Massachusetts versus EPA, that gave EPA the incentive to make that finding, came about when the Chevron deference was still a legal doctrine in American law. The Chevron deference orders all federal courts to give deference to bureaucrats and their internal lawyers on how they interpret the intent of federal statutes. Well, that doctrine was repealed by the Supreme Court last year, and it no longer exists, and it can no longer be used as a foundation for this endangerment finding. And I think Zeldin and Trump are going to make a real effort to reverse that endangerment finding. If they do, then every climate regulation invoked by both the Biden and Obama administrations will be subject to immediate repeal. And it'll take a long time for all of this to work its way through the courts, regardless of what EPA does. There will be a million lawsuits challenging it. It'll all have to go back up to the Supreme Court again. But this is the foot in the door to begin that process.
David, a couple things here. Jeff Chestnut has a great point. Learn more about CO2, the carbon compounds. I've interviewed the folks over there at the CO2coalition.org, and they're good people. Gregory Wrightstone is absolutely a hoot. Love him. I've interviewed him, I think 3 times. Good dude. He is a good dude. And this brings up a really big point. I don't know the answer to this, but carbon credits could be a thing of the past. Is that a fair statement? If the CO2 is no longer a pollutant, why fund it's a whole carbon market that is.
Oh, we're a very long way from that yet, because now they're talking about biodiversity credits.
Yeah.
Holy
no,
smokes.
I mean, those efforts aren't going to ever end voluntarily. They will have to be forcibly stopped. That market would have to be, and you'd have to have a global government consensus that it should be stopped, not just the United States. So,
wow.
I mean, there's trillions of dollars at stake in those things. Yeah.
Okie doke. And your Substack?
Yeah. Well, that's my political Substack there. That's not my energy Substack. But yeah, my energy Substack is called Energy Transition Absurdities. It's blackman.substack.com. I also write about politics at the Campaign Update. And it keeps me busy. It's what keeps me busy these days, is writing about all this stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Young and beautiful, right? And we have Irene next.
Just look at this. Irina.
Related to our discussion about coal, Google says US is facing a power capacity crisis in AI race against China. Well, now that we've seen the map of operating and permitted and being constructed coal power plants in the US and in China, I think it's safe to say that Google has a point.
Yeah.
But what anyone is going to do about it is a mystery. And it's interesting that Google is the one saying it, because Google was very big on wind and solar. Google was very big on carbon credits. And Google thought it would be net zero by 2050, which is not going to happen if it wants to stay in the AI race.
Here's a bit of irony about Google. Google is also the company that went to Nebraska and convinced regulators there to keep 2 major coal-fired power plants operating for another 5 to 10 years to power.
Did they now?
That was Google, yes.
But they've been carbon neutral since 2009.
Sure.
Yeah, because they buy so many carbon credits, and I really think they're still lying that they're carbon neutral.
Oh, hogwash! I was calling. Yeah, we're calling it hoo-ha on that one.
But they're sounding an alarm, and this is good. This is going to get even more hilarious than it already is. The other funny news of the week: why upstream companies might break their capital discipline rules. Why you think that might happen? Because Wood Mackenzie have found out that oil demand growth may be stronger than they expected.
No one could have seen that coming.
Which is what happens when you sell out to the transition gang. You stop thinking. And then when you somehow regain the ability to think, you make such a stunning discovery that oil demand growth is not weakening. And you come out with, reports like that.
Irina, that's such an awesome point. So many of these giant advisory firms over the last 5 to 7 years in the United
Yes.
States bought completely into this
Yes.
green energy transition nonsense and have been advising their clients like BP, Shell, big oil companies to spend billions of dollars investing in wind and solar and batteries and all this stuff that is not within their company's core competencies in order to burnish their ESG credentials and virtue signal about green energy. I wonder how they're all feeling and their clients are all feeling as we
That's a
watch a
more
company
interesting
like
question.
BP, announced last week that they're going to completely rejigger their entire corporate strategy to focus more on their core business. I just wonder how these firms, what their current status is, how comfortable they're feeling about their contracts being renewed here in the near future by these clients.
Honestly, if I were a client, I would drop them because they have believed that the transition is happening. They have believed the hype and the unrealistic expectations and plans. And these are supposed to be professionals.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to joke with Svetlana that we should set up a consultancy because we're at least as good as any other consultancy because we know how the energy system works. And these people know too, and yet they allow themselves to be misled, or maybe they got paid off. I have no idea of knowing.
Yeah,
But I think
I'd love
there's
to
a lot
know.
of genuine belief going on about this transition. And they kind of, it's an echo chamber. The International Energy Agency says this is going to go like this. And if the IEA says it, then it must go like this. And with all these government subsidies, and then all the shunning of oil and gas and peak oil demand because of the transition and because of subsidies and EVs and all these stranded assets. Remember, Woodmac was big on stranded assets.
Right. Yeah.
And now upstream companies might break their capital discipline rules. Well, color me shocked.
Well, I think the advisory firms who resisted going down that road, and I'll just say Enverus resisted it as just one example, are probably you're going to probably see them outgrow some of their competitors in the coming years.
Good.
S&P Global's another one. S&P Global resisted going down that road and should be commended for that. I think Daniel Yergin, who's their vice chairman, probably had a lot to do with that.
He's a cool cat.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of the coolest in the business. Yeah,
Anyway.
I'm done.
Okay.
I think it's over those comments. I don't care.
Yeah,
Okey-doke.
that's my Substack.
His name's David Blackman.
I don't think I said anything that's not true, so I feel okay.
You did not. Anyway, here's Irina's. I love your Substack, and where can they find you?
At Irina's Love on Energy at Substack. And I should start putting some images up, I think. Looks kind of empty.
Yes.
Oh, but the content is so wonderful.
And the voice. Well, there's a couple stories that I want to go over. And as I've been, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm not going to spend any time on this one, but I've been reviewing the United States grid versus demand expectations versus what's in construction. And ERCOT is projecting an 8% shortfall in 2027. The projection states large industry, cryptocurrency mining, and large data centers. And what we're seeing is like the data center in Abilene, Texas, also where I live, is where you're seeing a natural gas power plant coming in dedicated only to that data center. And it's going to be able to power 97,000 homes, except it's not going to be powering 97,000 homes. It's going to be powering that data center. So microgrids are going to be all important. Texas ERCOT, out of the 3 grids in the United States, is the only one that is on track, even though they're announcing they may have some trouble. Let's see, a little bit of a trouble. means you're aware of it and you're able to fix it. The other folks, they are really got some problems. I want to share this story out. A year ago, I put out, could China hack our electric grid? In 4 words, yes. The real question is Secretary Mayorkas in on it. And yes, I got whacked for this story, by the way, trying to say something bad against the Biden administration. And when I put this out, I put it out that there were 32 major grid interconnects that were connected and discovered to have back doors into them from China. Let me say that again. There are 32 major interconnects that President Trump took out. President Biden put back in. And now there are, with it, after 4 years of President Biden administration, because I don't know that he knew he signed this, there are now confirmed 495 major grid interconnects and transformers that have Chinese backdoors in our grid. After I put this story out, I had over 5,000 denial of service attacks on my website. Tell me it did not strike a major heart attack in people by putting this story out. Just thought I'd put this out there. It's a real issue.
Yeah, and most of the concern is with the transformers, isn't it? I mean, we don't make them here in the United States. We have to get most of them from China. We have a severe shortage, an inventory shortage of them. It's a crisis situation in our grid. And so these power companies have to take the transformers anywhere they can get them. It's taking up to 4 years in some instances to source these things. So they're in an emergency crisis situation, and it just creates this environment where it's so easy. It would be so easy if China has that intent to do something like that.
At the 32 major grid interconnects, I calculated out about 9% of the U.S. grid could be shut down. Depending on where that 9% came out, millions would die. So it is a big deal.
Yep.
Potentially, Steve,
Potentially.
Oh, no, we got to get them out.
You have to use weasel words, potentially. Allegedly.
Oh, absolutely. But you also have to look at the 32,000 military-age Chinese men that came across the Darien Gap. Now, let's go to the next story here. Trump to boost U.S. offshore and new energy dominance council. I absolutely love this. This is made up of a great group of men: Lee Zeldin, Doug Burgum, and Chris Wright. Holy smokes, Batman. This is the group to help deliver low-cost energy for the United States. I think this is a phenomenal thing.
It'll also include some of the other cabinet officials as well, Secretary of Commerce and Transportation.
Right.
But yeah, those are the 3 main ones.
And yes, he was up there as well too. Duffy, I really like him. He is a cool cat.
Duffy's.
And then there's Energy Newsbeat and the Energy Newsbeat, and lots of fun stuff there. So
it is fun. Right. There's a wealth of information. Amazing.
Well, thank you.
How much y'all put out every day.
You do a lot of work too.
Yeah.
I don't sleep very much. But I have to give a shout out.
Yes, you do, Jeff. Yeah.
This is the best point anyone's ever made. Yes, be like Russia. Be more self-sufficient, because self-sufficiency is security.
Yeah. Modest Bird, thank you for this. Oil and gas demand has grown historically with world population growth. The slope has started to increase with all the new electric energy demand. So all the efforts on transition has not significantly changed the energy mix. That's right. 80% of primary energy remains supplied by oil, gas, and coal. just as it was in the late 1990s. Nothing has changed.
You know, and I do want to say that Turley's Law is in effect. And when I have been reporting for 4 years and, you know, on this thing, it's been more than that. But when you sit back and take a look, the more money that is invested in renewable, non-sustainable energy,
Intermittent energy. Yes.
thank you, the potential energy, the more fossil fuels will be used. Turley's Law. The more money invested in renewable,
we can see it. Yeah, we can see it in real life.
It
It's
happens. So, all right.
Okay, folks, I think we have beaten this coal horse to death.
And then we shoveled it.
I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it. I think we did a good job here. I'm sorry Tammy wasn't with us. And I apologize again, Tammy, for not mentioning that up front. But she will be back next week, thank goodness. And we'll have another thrilling, enthralling, highly interesting, and no doubt conspiracy-filled topic to cover. Yes, Stu.
I think she was with Justin Trudeau when he was buying his thing. Maybe she was in Canada.
That has got to be him. I think that
has to be him.
That's amazing. Anyway,
but I still love DOGE. I want to play this for the last folks. This is again. This is the last time I got to say this. Maybe not. This is too funny. But DOGE is causing so many people looking at the reports. Imagine Democrats and rhinos looking at DOGE reports. Okay, hang on. Here we go.
I think that's actually Margaret Brennan at CBS News.
Yeah, I think so.
You're bad. You're bad, boys.
Or do you think it's Politico? Because Politico got millions and millions of dollars from USAID. And I think that's them looking at their DOGE reports. There you go.
It fits with so many outlets and entities that are currently in death throes because of Trump and DOGE, which is good.
Isn't that fun?
Oh, yeah. It's great fun.
All right. Hey, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful week.